Nation, episode 12. Just a second while I get them in here, and we'll start off the show.
William, how are you?
Good evening. How are you, Ethan?
I'm doing good. I'm doing
Oh
good.
boy,
Adam?
there he is. How you guys doing?
Doing good.
How
Doing good.
how
Kind of a
about
slow
yourself?
day.
Yeah. We got Mr. State Champion in the house here. How's he doing?
Say.
Pretty good. Pretty good. And man, I said I would be happy with a second place, but it's a nice little cherry on top for my senior year, right?
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. So we'll talk about Adams State Championship a little bit later in the episode. But for those of you who are in here, welcome to Show Choir Nation. This is the premier podcast of Homeroom Show Choir. This is episode number 12. We've reached a dozen episodes, and we started this in advance of the first weekend of show choir season. So it's hard to believe that we're a dozen weeks into the nationwide show choir circuit now, but here we are. I am your host, William. To my top is Ethan, if you're watching this, and to my side is Adam. If you're listening to this, you'll just hear our voices throughout the show. This show is airing live on Instagram right now, but if you cannot make it for the whole hour, this will also be on Spotify and YouTube later tonight. So if you can't stick around for the full hour, I would encourage you to just search Homeroom Show Choir on either Spotify or YouTube, and we can get you all of that content later on. Briefly touched on Adam's comp experiences from this past weekend. We'll get there again. I was not at a competition this past weekend. I had been at comps each of the past 2 weekends, so I needed a weekend off. Ethan, you were at a comp Saturday morning and within like 5 miles of another one on Saturday night. Why don't you just take a hot second to explain what went on with your Saturday?
So this is actually so funny. I'm so glad you brought this up, Will. I started my day out at Herscher. I went there for the junior high competition to see my siblings perform for the last time. So that was a joy to see them win and go undefeated this season. So congrats to Mount Zion Sound System. Amazing year. Then afterwards, my sister, directly after the competition, has AAU basketball, which for those who don't know is travel basketball during the summer, but it starts now. So my mom was like, you know what, it's just in Indianapolis. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. You know, I'm just along for the ride. Just kind of my thing. I just go along with it. I go and we get to where she's playing and I see a huge inn. And I'm like, well, I don't know what other schools are around here really. And then I look at it and it says Noblesville. And I was like, there's no way that I'm literally like not even 2 minutes away from the high school where Cedar Grove was performing and FC. And I was like, only if there was time in the day to go see them because they were performing pretty late, I think FC was. And I really wanted to see them because they're the one group I would have seen this season. And of course, see our great contributors there who were there that weekend. But I was just like, what are the chances that I show up and it's literally in its backyard? Uh, But yeah, so like I was basically at two comps this weekend. Not really, but I was there. I was there.
Well, from what I gathered with the atmosphere at AAU basketball tournaments, it's basically as much stress, if not more, than a show choir competition. So,
Oh, it's worse.
so I
So
think
worse.
you did pretty much have two comps this past weekend. We'll roll into a third competition that happened in the northeastern corner of the country, and that was the Andover New England Show Choir Showdown. In the large mixed division, coming home in first place, Cosby Spotlight from Virginia, best vocals and best choreography. Nope, best vocals and best band. There we go. I should probably read the show sheet before we go live. In
All
second,
good.
Waltham Music Unlimited. In third place, Auburn Varsity Singers, best choreography, making the drive up from Alabama. And in fourth place, Daniel Hand Vibe. The small mixed division winner was Natick West Street Singers with best vocals and best choreography. And the single gender winner was Cosby Rhapsody with best vocals, best choreo, and best band. Cosby, making the drive up from Virginia, is now 3 for 3 this year. They have wins in 3 different states. They started out their season at Poca in West Virginia. They then won in their home state. Now they are winners in Massachusetts as well. We also have Auburn coming from out of state, taking a third place here. A couple of New England groups in this top four as well. Ethan, I'll toss this one to you first. New England, I feel like this was the spiciest battle in the country outside of the confines of Indiana this weekend. What are the immediate takeaways for you?
Well, yeah, my takeaways. I would love to hear. My first takeaway is I would love to hear my prediction on this earlier because I don't think I got one placement right. That just shows how much I know the Northeast and how much I know when the South tries to invade it. But first off, Cosby, of course, having an amazing year. I think they have one competition left. I believe Powhatan. Am I saying Powhatan right?
Powhatan.
Powhatan. Okay. So, yeah, but and then I also want to give a shout out to the girls group because I think they're currently undefeated too as well before their last competition. So that's a big fit. Uh, I mean, the one thing that stands out to me, even though I already listed off like five things, of course, is Daniel Hand, but I just want to give credit to where it's credit's due. I think Waltham had a great finish. And I think they need some praise because there's beginning of the season we didn't know what they would look like, only going up against their regional partners, and they came out and they finished their season with a really good resume and a very solid second place finish. Auburn finishes their amazing season after what we thought was the upset, at least early on the season over Homewood. They finished their amazing season, and this has to be probably their first gold medal in program history. So congratulations to them on a gold medal. And then then let's just go to the elephant in the room. Daniel Hand finishing fourth. Clearly not where they probably wanted to place. Maybe their show plateaued a little bit from the beginning of the year. Over the course of a season, when you're running a show over and over and over, sometimes it can get a little stale. I'm not saying that's what happened, but just from an outside perspective, that's kind of what I'm going to assume. They have one more chance to end on a bright note at HOA New York, and so that'll be interesting. Yeah, but biggest thing that stuck out to me was Daniel Hand's fourth place finish.
Awesome. I have a couple thoughts on what you said, but I'm going to toss it to Adam first, and then I'll clean up whatever's left.
Well, I will say this. Cosby is one of the groups that I know has had an undefeated streak for a minute here. And, I don't think any of us predicted this win here, but they maintained it and they brought it. So it's awesome to see them drive up here and just bring that good quality sound that earned them that spot there. Yeah. Of course, there's talk about Waltham and Daniel Hand, who have been back and forth in their region for a minute, but I think it's very interesting. Not necessarily that they were in third. I think what that means is just that it was very close, but Auburn took that third spot with best choreography. So I think it's very interesting to see the difference in how their sound from the South might have translated to the North. But they really brought the visuals. They've got an excellent show this year. So it's cool to see them on their way in. Thoughts, Will?
Yeah, this one, I don't know. I think I had already proclaimed something else as the New England competition of the year earlier this year.
I think you did too.
I feel like Tatascore or something, but this had pretty much everything that you could want, right? This had an 8 choir large mixed division, and all the way down to Tatanskwa in 7th got gold medals. Lowell was the only large mixed group that got a silver medal. And I believe a gold medal is like 80% or more of the points. Not from New England, so I don't know Ethan, I know you've competed in New England before. You're the one with the stories here.
I don't know much, but I think you're right.
So I believe the cutoff is 80%. So to see just that level of sustained excellence in the Northeast, I think is phenomenal. And then I just wanted to touch on Waltham here really quickly because Waltham, I was texting someone from the Northeast today, and he said, you know what? He said Waltham is 87. We got the number. Oh, wow. So that is, I mean, if you 7 groups within 87% of the points, it's got to be just kind of splitting hairs up at the top. But one thing that I want to say is that Waltham is a group that I have it on good word, is one of those more dynamic groups throughout the season. Like if a dance break doesn't work, they'll re-choreograph it. If a section of a number doesn't work, they'll rethink it. And so I think there's a lot of credit for that because, critiques and finals and whatever, they're kind of hot topics in the Midwest based off of how much of a difference do they actually make. Waltham is one of those groups that they actively seek improvement throughout the year. They lost to South Windsor earlier this season, and now we see them in second and South Windsor in fifth at this competition. So I think it's much more of a story of Waltham's growth than anything else. And then I also just want to give a call to the small mixed division. Natick has now won a small mixed division every single year that they've competed, which is 3 after the pandemic now. So definitely one of the more intriguing small mixed programs in New England there. We're going to move on to the ISSMA Large School State Finals. The mixed results for this one: Plainfield Ballet Beau taking home first place, best vocals and best choreography. Fishers Electrum second, Avon accents there, not Avon, Avon. I'll catch myself. In fourth place, Lawrence North Legacy, and then the women's in first place with vocals and choreo, Fisher Sound. Second place, Avon Attraction. Third place, Castle Nightingales. And in fourth, Plainfield Femme Fatale. Ethan, that's another French name for those of you who took Spanish in high school. So I guess, Adam, you are the one who are there. You can talk about whatever you want. You can skip whatever you want. I guess, what are your overall thoughts from being at the large school finals?
Yeah, so there's most certainly, I think, even more than talk about results. I think there's been more talk about the existence of the competition at all over the past couple of weeks, right? ISMA, or the Indiana State School Music Association, organizes all sorts of events for all sorts of musical ensembles, even solo groups across the state. And their show choir state finals has come under fire over the past couple of years. There's a little bit of question about the score sheet. There's some question about some of the rules at the competition. And some directors just don't think it's the most fun comp to take their kids to at the end of the season. But what I will say about it is that it's on an excellent stage. The Pike High School auditorium is fantastic. I know my group enjoyed themselves a lot this weekend. And I will add the detail that while it was very, very close for a lot of the groups there, both of the groups that won first place swept both captions and won by at least 20 points. So there was your separation, at least especially in an ISMA score sheet, there's your separation from there to the rest. So I thought that was interesting to see. What are some of our takeaways from outsiders here?
Yeah. Um, okay, we're gonna shelve the politics discussion right now, and we might make that our bridge segment because I think that deserves more talk than what it's worth to lump in the middle of our results division here. I think I'll take this one then since I'm talking. I think there were groups that stood out to me in both the mixed and the women's divisions. Really like one group apiece. In the mixed division, that was Avon. Avon is a group that I think our poll voters for our Indiana poll rankings, they've kind of been honest with where they placed Avon this year, and I think that some people may not have thought it was true, but then Avon goes down to Fame Orlando, and they get beat out by Blue Valley, which is the only show choir anyone's ever heard of from Kansas, and so I think it did cast some doubts on some people before ISMA weekend and say, where is Avon going to place, especially with some of the shows that turn corners at the end of the season and things like that. Where are they going to stack out? The answer is that they stacked out third, and I don't think anyone was really expecting them to beat Fishers or Plainfield. But I think there were a fair contingent of people who thought that Lawrence North or maybe Lawrence Central or maybe somebody else could sneak up on Avon and beat them. But Avon holding very steady, rounding out the podium in mixed. And then in women's, it's also the third place group. It's the Castle Nightingales. Castle is pretty much an outlier in the Indiana show choir scene. There are not a ton of large programs around Newburgh in the far southern part of the state where Castle is. And so basically their only option to get around other large competition is to hike it up to Indianapolis every weekend. And so the Nightingales have had kind of a rough go of it this year. They missed finals once, a couple of fourth places here or there. So popping off for third at ISMA is really good, in my opinion, for Nightingales. Those are my standouts. Ethan, what do you have?
No, I think you have a really good point there, Will, because I mean it's hard to go down to Orlando and then come back and try to regroup and be like, all right, now we have to compete for state. I mean, when I think of state, I always think of like, of course, like sports, because here in Illinois we don't have a show choir state, so it's like it's almost like you have to run against everyone you know. You have so many friends at the competition, or so many groups you know, so many groups you run into. So it must have been hard to like come back and tone in as a group from going to Orlando, because of course they probably had a blast down there. Yes, so congratulations to them on their third place finish. I thought Fishers rounded out a really good season. Second place, like you said, a bunch of groups maybe thought maybe Fishers might slip a little bit in the podium, but no, they stay in that second spot. And then Fisher Sound, I mean, it's 6 grand championships, it's 6 vocal awards, it's 5 choreography awards, and it's 5 miscellaneous captions, which only they got one more to get all sixes. And then, of course, now they can be called state champions. So that's super cool. Congratulations to Scott Archer and Lainey DeLuna.
Lainey DeLuna, yep.
I think I got that
And
right.
she's a first year director too.
Yeah, and that's fantastic for their program. That's huge. I mean, that can go so far. And my last thing to say on ISMA, what's it like? Like, is the award ceremony like normal, or is it like different because it's state? Like, is there anything that's different with the award?
The only thing that is different is that it's sponsored by the Indiana Dairy Farmers Association. So there's a long running tradition of the winners chugging milk like you would if you had just won the Indy 500, which is fitting because Indianapolis. And the second difference is we don't have one warm-up room, we have 2 warm-up rooms. So you actually spend an hour warming up. The first one is movement only and you can't sing. And then the second one is a regular warm-up, which is a little bit strange. And I've never seen it at any other competition. But they've always done it that way at ISMA, which is really, really strange. But other than that, I saw a comment in there from some folks from Fishers, and absolutely, I agree. There's no point in, no matter what the politics were, there's no point in taking away from the joy of the kids that were there. So huge congratulations to all the groups that were in attendance. And yes, from the yes to Nathan and yes to Will, it is a thing that they do there. They have they have 2 warm-up rooms and 2 warm-up sessions for each group.
So I've heard of a pre-warm-up room where it's like there's just a piano and they just, you go through your stuff. But like to be like kind of like strict like that, it's kind of crazy. It's stuff we can talk about later.
Really weird.
That's wild.
You can't sing. Like there's a judge there to make sure it's only movement practice, and then you go into a room where it is vocals and movement together. And as for ISMA, and this is part of the controversy here, is how highly regulated it is. Some folks like it, some folks don't. But in the words of my director, sometimes you just got to play the game, and if you know that's what it is, then you prepare your strategy that way. So that's what I'll give it, and yeah.
I mean, I went to a competition one time where they said if you've seen in the hallways, you're disqualified.
Oh, that's all Indiana stuff. That's all Indiana. Yep. So, strange as it is, it's just how we do it over here, I guess. And whether it's good or not, we won't discuss that, but I will point it out because it is pretty unique. So
all I'm going to say is that I would have quit show choir after my freshman year if I had been in Indiana. Because, like Ethan said, very occasionally, you hear like a pre-warm-up room where like it's just vocal warm-ups. And I appreciate that. I would appreciate that. I've never had that simply because I think my semi-large choir did a lot of warm-ups in a small homeroom. And then you get to the regular warm-up room. While we're talking about this, big shout out to our friends, the warm-up room. They have a podcast each week too. I feel like it'd be a crime not to plug them right now.
Great plug right there.
Warm-up rooms.
So shout out to Dobbs and Aiden. But man, see, that's the thing, is that I understand that it's safe. I understand regulated. I understand all of that. And I also understand drinking milk. As a Wisconsinite myself, the more milk you can drink, the better of a life you're going to have. That's my advice. That's my life advice, unsolicited life advice. It's more good advice than you'll ever get from any counselor. But the more milk you drink, the happier of a life you're going to have. But I think it's interesting because less groups are choosing to play the game. This is the first year since 2008 that the mixed title has not gone to either Franklin Central or North Central. I think traditionally you had both of those schools fighting throughout the 2010s, and just, whoever was better that year, slightly better. There were a lot of split captions, maybe even some years where a caption went to third place. It was either North Central or Franklin Central. And then this year, Franklin Central decided to join Noblesville, which was kind of the upstart protest competition, and North Central decided to jet a state over to Marysville, and they did great anyways. They wound up cleaning out Petal and Carroll, and we'll talk about that in a little bit here. But I think it is interesting to see how I don't know if it's as much of a thing on the small side. There are less groups choosing to play the game, but on the large mix side of things, there are less schools who are choosing to play by those rules.
Yeah.
And we have Noblesville, who just started a competition this year, and the jury is still out. I have not heard from anybody who performed at Noblesville that could compare and contrast it to state. So I don't know
It's a very
if that's a
small
viable alternative.
stage.
Um, but I think it is a discussion worth having, because while there are other states that have, like, quote unquote state festivals or whatever, Colorado, North Carolina, Maine, whatever, Indiana is the only one where the state sanctioning body says that you have to go to a comp sanctioned bias, and then it's our deal through and through. So I mean, it's kind of a unicorn in the show choir world, and I think it's worth talking about.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can completely understand why some groups don't make that decision. But all I will say is we do have a state champion. We have a collection of state champion milk bottles and a state champion milk cooler now. And there is nowhere else that you will win that from a competition. So,
Yeah, you know what? I gotta start somebody in Wisconsin on that, because there's I I'm astounded that this
oh
exists and
yeah,
that nobody from Wisconsin
it's a
has
tradition.
picked up on
That's
it yet.
awesome.
Hey, if you're starting a new competition in Wisconsin next year, let me know, and we can figure out the milk thing. Ethan, do you have you're usually the one with stories here. Did you ever compete at ISMA State, and if so, how was it?
Oh, I don't know
Well,
if groups from Illinois are allowed.
yeah, but I've been at ISMA competitions, and like I said, we were told, there's no singing in the hallways. If someone hears you singing in the hallways, they'll report you, and then the whole group is done, which was scary. And of course, everyone from Illinois is like, "Oh, it's not really a rule. That's kind of bull crap." Blah 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 blah. Because we don't know. We're not used to it. But we're like, you know what? I remember when we were at Fishers, 2020. We're like, you know what? We're gonna go to state. We're gonna go to state that's not in our state. That was our whole goal, was to go or qualify for state. And then we ended up winning the competition. And we get back into the homeroom, shout out the homeroom, check out their podcast, they're amazing. And then we were like, oh my gosh, we can go to state. We can go to state. Let's go to state. And we're like, nah, they don't want to see us. No, just kidding. But yeah, I guess that's my experience with ISMA a little bit.
Only you could take a question that I asked completely sarcastically and somehow have a show choir story that's halfway in the ballpark.
Always,
I know.
always, man.
I try to
So,
cook around it.
so congratulations to you. I think we're just gonna head over to Marysville results at this point. I think we've kind of just exhausted this topic. So Marysville, we have North Central Counterpoints winning this one with best vocals, best choreo, and best band. Second place, Pedal Sensations. Third place, Carol Magic. Fourth place, Beaver Creek Friends. Fifth place, Olentangy Keynotes. In the women's finals, North Central Descants took home the win, followed by Carol Select Sound and the Pedal Innovations. Ethan, number one, did you ever compete at Marysville? And number two, what do you think of the results?
It's crazy because I did. I did not. I, I mean, that's hysterical. Yeah, I did. I competed at Marysville. Great. It's a fantastic competition. I mean, I went there during COVID, but it was one of the only competitions that we went to that felt like a real competition, because we were able to stick around a little bit. I'm trying to think of some. I think I saw some really good groups there. Hurricane was there amongst some others, and it was really cool going to a competition against like competition that we knew, as in like large mixed, instead of having to go to smaller competitions. But yeah, that's my story with Marysville. About on the results. Congrats North Central for breaking tradition almost. There's that crazy stat since like '08, like you said, Franklin Central and uh, North Central have won ISMA all those years since 2008. And for them to break tradition and go elsewhere is kind of super cool. I mean, they can always go back, but of course, going up against competition you never really see unless you try to. That's something I think a lot of groups should try to do, and that's a topic we might talk about later. Um, yeah, I think it's really good for your students and to get out there. Shout out to Pedal for coming up and putting on a show. I kind of thought that they might get snubbed of a second place. Not snubbed, but I thought maybe groups could come up and maybe take the spot from them. Traveling up is not easy. But maybe I'm wrong because Brandon Brio showed out earlier this year too when they went up north. So I could just be wrong. Maybe I don't know. And then uh, Carroll did amazing. Beaver Creek did amazing. Beaver Creek got back at Olentangy. Olentangy had their number earlier in the year. Olentangy also took vocals and band from the host of this competition who went undefeated. And they ended up getting last in their division. So that kind of says how good this competition was. Shout out to Beaver Creek for besting Olentangy. I think Olentangy has one comp left, which oh yeah they do, and it's at HOA in New York with another group who's trying to end their season on the right note. Daniel Hand, who we just talked about, who got a fourth place finish, not a placement that they thought they would get. So you have two groups who maybe didn't think that they got the placements that they probably wanted. Facing off against each other, and that's going to be one to watch next week. One more thing, I think Tier 2 was super cool. Winfield was a great win. They've been great all year, and we'll talk about them in a little bit. I think they're involved in one of our comps of the week. Peoria, I got to shout out Peoria for a big win over Ross, which I don't think many saw happening. Peoria had some incidents earlier this year. They're kind of smaller. I won't say the incidents. Will out loud probably, but
It's
that's not
okay.
my
We
place.
know.
And
You just gotta look
yeah,
at the Homestead comment thread.
yeah.
Oh,
This other
God bless that poor kid.
I saw the video and it was crazy. He performed his heart out though.
One,
So, but Roswell's a program who got four overall wins last year. I know they're going through a director change right now in a transition year, and that's always tough. But Peoria beat a really good Ross group, or historically. So shout out to Peoria and shout out to Winfield for winning Tier 2.
Adam, what do you got for Marysville?
So some insight from Indiana here. The counterpoints have a really, really long legacy, especially in the 2000s and early 2010s. They were unstoppable and have continued to still be a fantastic group since, but had a rocky year last year. But their director is off and he's retiring, and this year was one of their best seasons in recent memory, and they were fantastic. And I think it was really special to see both of the groups walk away with a clean win for his last competition of his professional career there. And so I know a lot of North Central kids who were just ecstatic to see that. I think it's also exciting to see some of that Ohio competition there, right? We talked about Olentangy, which is a pretty solid Ohio group, but as the season progressed, kind of got surpassed by some of the groups that they had a lead on earlier. For example, Marysville, but also Beaver Creek here, right? And we talk about Pedal Driving Up. This is a group that has some really, really fantastic things to put on the stage. I always enjoy watching their show every year. So this was a fierce one. And what are your thoughts on this, Will? I feel like you definitely have something to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think number one, and like you just want to talk about, Michael Ronick is probably going to be one of the centerpieces of our annual retirement speech this year, just because of his really long legacy at North Central and the fact that not only did Counterpoints come home with a clean sweep, I mean, they did pretty much the same thing at Lawrence Central last week. They took home vocals and choreo. But it's that Descants came out and they won their first competition since 2019. Plainfield 2019 was the last time that Descants won a women's division. That's a long time ago. I mean, that's like not even
Pre-COVID.
pre-pandemic, a year
Yeah.
pre-pandemic. So big shout out to Descants as well. I think that's one of my main takeaways. The other takeaway is that, as much as I hate to say it, Ohio kind of got showed up here. I mean, their two groups in large mixed were fourth and fifth in finals. They didn't put a single group in the women's finals. Their one group in middle mixed was third place, and then they had both groups in small mixed, so that is what it is. But everybody else kind of came to play. I mean, you had Indiana groups winning the large mixed and women's divisions, and you had a West Virginia group winning the middle mixed division. So, yeah, I think that was just one of the biggest things that stuck out to me is that Ohio, I don't know if they just didn't finish strong or what it was, but not the best day for the home state choirs on the whole. we're going to move somewhere to. It was a similar story. I mean, there just weren't many home state choirs to begin with at this competition, anyways. And that was the Mitchell Show Choir Classic in Mitchell, South Dakota, home of Corn Palace. If you've seen Friend Koo's show this year, for those of us who know how to say Friend Koo, the final results of this one: Millard West, West in the Groove,
That
best
was
vocals,
a
best
direct
choreography.
call out too.
Yeah. Okay, you're just gonna have to go back if you don't know what that is. I think it's episode 5 or episode 6. You got to look at that and see Ethan Clown himself. Millard West, West in the Groove, taking home the win on this one. Omaha South, the ambassadors, second place. Sioux City East, the headliners, third place. Aberdeen Central, Eagle Express, fourth place. Bishop Heelan, Harmonium Mundi, fifth place, and Millard West Swing Cats, sixth place. Adam, we have 5 groups here. The top 5 groups had all either won competitions or been pretty consistent podium placers this year. Who are big winners out of this competition?
Yeah, well, we talked about this being, a gathering of champions, right? There's a lot of these groups in this finals division that have gone and won at comps respectively on their own. And Millard West has had a fantastic season. I think it would be really hard to ignore how many times they've come out on top or just close against some really tough groups. So hats off to them, of course. But I do want to talk about our first runner-up, which is Omaha South, and our second runner-up as well, which is Sioux City East. And these were, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Aberdeen was favored for the first runner-up spot going into this weekend. But not that they underperformed or got worse, but something special to see when you travel into a competition and you outperform what people thought you could do. So that's really exciting for the Sioux City East kids who've been hungry for some recognition this season. Omaha South, who's had a pretty solid season on their own, but could also, I'm sure, benefited from their placement here. And I think it's also worth pointing out Swing Cats making finals. So I think that's cool to see.
Ethan, what do you think?
So I feel like their name's going to come up later in the year too when we start doing our awards and maybe some of the category of awards that we have. But Omaha South, I think they might have had the best season that they've ever had and so much to go off for next year. They started the season with 3 fourth place finishes, and many were thinking it would be an average Omaha South year. But then they went out and got their first win in program history, I believe. And of course, that is huge for a program, and that changes everything once you get that GC. And then they come here, amazing competition, and get second. So the program isn't going in the right direction. I think this program is one to look out for next year. I think they are one to be contenders with. And of course, Millard West, amazing year. That's 3 wins now. I saw a sign on Mitchell. I wasn't going to post it because it was posted for our memes, but it didn't make the cut. Their homeroom sign said Millard West in the Grove, and I just thought that was kind of funny. There's so many instances of that over history, but just one that stuck out to me. Yeah, but they finished their season on the mountaintop. Congrats to them. And yeah, the Swing Cats for Millard West is amazing as well. They've always been a beast in that prep division, and they've always been in finals, it feels like, since COVID. And I know before COVID, they're probably around the same force as they were. So big dubs for Millard West, and congratulations to the majority of these groups, maybe all these groups finishing their seasons.
Yeah, I mean, not much that hasn't been said about Millard West at this point. There's a reason why they have been, probably continue, will being one of the top 3, top 5 programs in Nebraska each and every year. Omaha South, I think it's very rare that let's be blunt about it. Let's be honest with it here. I think that it's very rare that we see a school from that much of an economically disadvantaged background do as well as they have been doing. And I think that's huge props to Tyler Grudemeyer, who's the director there. And I don't know who's choreographing them this year. So I can't shout whoever that is out. Would love to know who's choreographing them this year. But they're definitely a little bit of a rare breed within the show choir world. And so huge congrats to Omaha South. Aberdeen Central started this year off with 3 straight wins. They've cooled off a little bit, but I've seen a grand total of 2 South Dakota shows in my life. Incidentally, both have been in the month of March this year. So shout out Vermillion and Mitchell. So just not seeing any of the shows. I don't know if it's Aberdeen cooling off or everybody else heating up. So I can't say that. But just the one thing that I did want to say is that I do love my men's divisions, and this one was the first men's division that I've ever seen separated out in South Dakota. And so congrats to Bishop Heelan Momentum for claiming what may very well be the first men's division in the history of South Dakota Show Choir. So, and they beat Sioux City East Entourage for that one. So congrats to Heelan there. We got roughly 1 minute until our prediction segment is about to start, or our preview segment. So I'll just run through some assorted storylines quick. Clinton cleaned out Heart of America Orlando. Surprise, surprise. Everybody's super shocked. What people are shocked about is that their middle school group wound up being in finals and placing fourth ahead of multiple high school groups at that competition. Center Grove won Best Vocals and Best Choreo over Franklin Central at Noblesville. Huntington North claimed their fourth overall win of the season at Isma Small. Uniondale shocked Loveland, taking 2 captions at Fame Show Choir America. Glendora took home a really big advanced mixed 2 division win at Los Alamitos Extravaganza. Hurricane put Red Hot and Heatwave 1-2 at the inaugural Herbert Hoover River Classic. Cheyenne Mountain Dynamics won the inaugural Vista Ridge Best of the Rockies Festival in Colorado. And a couple of first-time winners, Powhatan and MFL Marmac, both posted their first overall wins ever this past weekend. So I guess one each that stands out to you. Ethan, I'll head to you first.
So the one that stuck out to me on paper, and of course, groups who get their first wins ever, I want to talk about them. I just don't know much about them. So I'll talk about what I do know, and I know Uniondale getting a win over Loveland is huge. I don't think anyone thought this was going to happen besides the people inside Uniondale. You got to talk about Uniondale because they compete like once a year, because they only go to Fame events recent years, I believe, and usually there's only like one Fame event that they go to, which is America or Orlando. So they head down south, and you can probably only catch them once a year. So then to play spoiler to Loveland is crazy. And like I said, no one thought it was going to happen. They're almost like a ghost. They just come out of nowhere, and you have no film on them. You don't know much about them, and then they do this. So I'm actually excited to see if there's a Uniondale video that I can watch later this year to see what Loveland ran into. And it's their first win since 2019, pre-pandemic. So congrats to Uniondale. Loveland, you had a fantastic season. You didn't place lower than third or second, so that's amazing. So don't let this take away from your fantastic season.
Ethan, I know we got to keep a move on this segment, but real quick, do you know what state Uniondale is from?
New York.
Okay.
Right?
Good. You do know everything, so I just wanted to.
I don't know everything, bro.
Like the only New York group.
Yeah,
Pretty
much.
Thank our ranking spreadsheet for that. Ranking spreadsheet.
Yeah. Anyways, Adam, what stands out to you from this list?
Well, I'll make it quick. Huntington North is a small group, here we go. Small group from Indianapolis, some would argue medium, that has 4 wins this season and has only dropped a choreo caption to El Paso Gridley, who has been on a run this season. So congrats. This is a program that is, has always been very present in Indiana, but had an especially good year this year.
Good. And I'll pick out something real quick, and this is actually something that Ethan touched on, is saying that he didn't know much about. Powhatan Residents is a group from Virginia. They are only in year number 10 of competition, so on a historic scale, this is a kind of newer group that they took home the win at the Martinsburg American Classic in West Virginia. So a big win for them. They were going off against some other Virginia groups and some Maryland groups even. So that was super cool to see. They actually host the Diamond Classic this upcoming weekend, which if we have time, I don't know if we will get to it. And then MFL Marmac Legacy is a really small program out of northeastern Iowa. They used to be called the Young Americans before the pandemic, and then they changed their name to Legacy. I don't know if I ever competed against them, but I definitely saw their names around. And West Delaware, the competition that was at, it was 5 like really small Iowa groups. I would say maybe 5 of the smallest 20 groups in the state. And so congrats to them on being the best out of the field that they were given. So with that being said, it is Show Choir Nationals time. And so we don't have a specific podcast dedicated to this, but we're going to talk about this for as long as we need to, and if this is the rest of the show, it's the rest of the show. So in the mixed division, we've got Oak Mountain Singers, Manchester Capital Swing, Brownsburg Spotlight Singers and Co., Noblesville NHS Singers, Fairfield Coraliers, Bloomington Amplitude, Grenada Visions, Glenwood Titan Fever, Jackson Academy Encore, Cedar Rapids Kennedy Happiness Inc., Center Grove Sound System, and Findlay First Edition. And then in the women's division, we've got Oak Mountain The Muses, Manchester Touch of Swing, Brownsburg Starlight Voices, Noblesville New Dimension, the Fairfield Pure Elegance, and then Center Grove Debtones. We got groups from a lot of places here. We've got Adams, Indiana representation with Center Grove, Brownsburg, Noblesville, and Bloomington. We've got Ethan's Illinois representation with Glenwood. We've got a couple of groups from the South, a couple of groups from Ohio. We've got a group from Virginia in here. We've got a group from Iowa in here. Nationals is just one of those comps where you're throwing darts at a board to see who makes finals. And Ethan, I'll let you throw the first couple darts.
Yeah, like you said, this is tough because I feel like this year, even though Will kind of disappeared there, I feel like this year is kind of hard because there's so many groups here are like veterans at nationals. So many groups who go to nationals on a consistent basis, and that are on that bubble line for me. I think Glenwood is on that bubble line. They go to these competitions for so many years, and they've won this competition handful of times as well. I believe Cedar Rapids Kennedy goes to this competition a fair amount of times. Manchester Capital Swing is always, maybe not nationals, but they always go to national competitions, so it seems, with HOA. And those are a lot of groups that are like on the outside looking in. If I had to make a prediction, Will told me to be ready with this, so I'm ready. I'm not going to ponder like I did with Wheaton. I'll get straight into it with my darts at the board, and this is definitely not a bullseye. I'm going to go Center Grove with a win. I'm not going to do captions because who knows, but if I had to, I think Center Grove might sweep. I think it'll be a sweep. I don't know where the band caption will go, but I have Center Grove at the one with a sweep. This is kind of hard for me because I'm kind of indifferent about it, but I do think Oak Mountain will get second. I do think there's so many groups that can go in that second spot, but for now, I'm just going to put Oak Mountain there. And then I have to take the Naturals veteran in Findlay. I just have to put them there in that third spot. They have to be in the podium for me. If they're not, I don't think I'm doing this list right at all or doing them justice. And then the group that I love from the South, Grenada, I think they're going to be scored really good here. I think they'll be top four. I don't know where in the top four. They're probably not going to be in the top four now, but Grenada in my four. And I have a sleeper. I have two sleepers to round it out, I think. I don't know. I haven't looked at the community predictions or anything, but I have Noblesville in my five. Noblesville's had a very solid season, and of course, being from Indiana, it's tough to place high there. They start their season pretty early, so it might be kind of hard to keep going the way they are. But I have Noblesville in my five, and then to round it out, I have maybe another one, which is Jackson Academy. I think Jackson Academy is going to round it out. They had a crazy upset earlier this year, and they're a fantastic group, choreographed by Sam Mulligan, and I think they'll have enough to make finals at this competition.
Oh, well, you definitely threw some darts that I'm not going to be throwing in a couple of minutes here. But
yeah, I figured, but gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah. All right, Adam. What's your read? Explain your picks if you want, or just roll through them.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll start. I'll give CG the top spot with vocals and choreography, and I'm gonna actually follow them up with Grenada. And I think, and someone from the South can correct me if I'm wrong. Our poll rankings have them just above Oak Mountain, and while that isn't always, while that isn't something that I live and die by, it is something that is usually pretty right. And I feel confident in the South also taking that third spot with Oak Mountain in the three, just because of the visuals of these groups. And I'm going to go ahead and give the fourth to a group that I will also give the band caption to, and it's Noblesville. And I want to give them that fourth spot. And first of all, no Findlay mentioned yet. I know. Hold out for
Will's
me.
not gonna have Noblesville in his finals. I already know where he's going with this. But
and then I'm gonna give.
Sorry, Adam.
I give Brownsburg the 5 and Findlay the 6, and that leaves out Fairfield and groups that I definitely have in my national top 50. And hold on, my confidence in Noblesville, I promise it's not unfounded. This is a group that is consistently excellent visually and has been since the start of the year. And vocally, from what I've heard from some friends who saw them this past weekend, they were very impressed. So again, I think the first 8 spots here could have some dynamic changes there. But I am interested to see where Will is going to throw his darts. And I'll go ahead and add on to the comment there. Not only does Noblesville not feature screens, but Noblesville has a spinning car as a set
I've
piece.
seen the
So,
DeLorean. Yeah, yeah.
yep.
I uh, I just love living rent free inside Ethan's head because
Why?
he's
Because
already
right?
guessing. He's already guessing at who I'm gonna put in my predictions. I don't even have to say anything. Okay, so shocker, shocker. I'll put Center Grove on top, and I think that's where the agreement ends. I'll go Grenada at the 2. Grenada is having one of their on years. Like this is, and I think that this is the competition for Grenada to really firmly establish themselves nationally, and hopefully they can start stringing together more of these really good on years together. In third place, I'm going to put Brownsburg. Brownsburg is a year that so odd to me from an out of state perspective. I think they started a little bit later than a couple of Indiana groups, and then they went to a couple competitions where there wasn't as much attention on them. So all of a sudden, it wasn't until like mid February that Brownsburg basically slapped everybody across the face and said, "Hey, like we're just as good of a show as a lot of other people are, and you need to start respecting us right now." And I respect Brownsburg very much, very much so enough to put them as my 3. And so I'll put Brownsburg at my 3 here. I'm going to take Oak Mountain Singers at the 4. Oak Mountain Singers perform in the one hole in the morning on Friday morning. And that is a double-edged sword because you either set the bar really, really high
Yeah.
or you set the bar really low. And looking at these judges, David Fair, Bob Anderson, Connie Mulligan, Adam Pulver, Scott Thorne, I challenge anybody to go up and down that list and find me somebody who does not know show choir inside and out. Adam Pulver may deal more in the college realm than the high school realm these days, but he is still very much a phenomenal show choir mind. And it's going to be fair judging, but it's also,
Yeah.
if you come out in the morning and you stumble, it's going to be judging that reflects that. Regardless, I think that Oak Mountain does enough to qualify into finals. And then at finals, it's a pretty clean slate. So I don't know if I would pick Oak Mountain fourth in prelims, but I'll pick Oak Mountain fourth in finals. And then in fifth place, I will go with Noblesville. I have to put Noblesville in there. They don't have screens, which is a phenomenal plus. So I have to put Noblesville, and I have to put Noblesville in there because I think they've earned it. I think they've done enough. They've won or split captions with enough groups that I would have them in here. And then for my 6, I'm going to talk about a group that I don't think either of you guys have really talked about. I think this is a group that is getting critically slept on in this whole
Fairfield.
conversation, and that's Cedar Rapids Kennedy.
Oh,
I'll take Cedar Rapids Kennedy at the 6th. Is this the same Cedar Rapids Kennedy that was by far the best of the Cedar Rapidses in the late 2010s? No, it's not. And Storm Ziegler is still there, and Damon Brown is still there, and it's still the same people at the head. And are they more so a second, third, fourth place group at a lot of Iowa competitions these days? Yeah, they are. But the thing is, Happiness Inc. is just about as much of an institution in Iowa show choir right now as you can get. I think that you could maybe argue Cedar Rapids Jefferson along there with them, because all these groups from Des Moines, Linmar Johnston, Ankeny Centennial, they have a much shorter record of national excellence than the Cedar Rapids groups do. And so Happiness Inc. is a group that's been here before. They've done well here before. And I think they do well here before again. Their last competition, March 2nd, at Cedar Rapids Jefferson, they swept Indianola, which is a very up-and-coming program in the Iowa scene. So I'll put Cedar Rapids Kennedy in there at the 6. Who does that leave out for me? That leaves out Findlay. That leaves out Fairfield. That leaves out Glenwood. That leaves out Jackson Academy. I mean, that leaves out Manchester. That leaves out Bloomington. It leaves out a lot of people. But you have to do it at a certain point. So those those are my show choir nationals finals picks. I don't know. Clown me. What am I doing wrong here?
Well,
No,
there's nothing wrong. I just
yeah.
think that the show choir nationals gods who have Finley there every year for some reason will make sure that the script does not behave in your favor. That's all I've got to say. No,
Yeah.
jokes
I
aside,
mean,
I would like to point out that we agreed on 4 of the 6 predictions. So I don't know if it was that different.
I will say, you putting a Iowa group into a or into the conversation was a smart move because it seems like Iowa always sneaks into the final spot at national competitions. Just the way it is. I know Prairie's done it multiple times. Cedar Rapids Kennedy's always in the mix. So kudos to you for putting them in there.
Hey, I know this isn't a podcast about Instagram Live, but can anyone explain what the bubbles are? Because I keep seeing them. I feel old.
I
What
don't know what they
bubbles?
are either.
I
So
don't even know. They just keep showing up, and I get so excited. Okay. Anyways, sorry.
well, there is one more question that I have to round out this segment, and it would not be a true segment without this question. And so the question is, Ethan, have you ever competed at Show Choir Nationals? Have you ever been scheduled to compete at Show Choir Nationals? And
You're
if
so
so, how was
funny,
the
Will. Oh yeah, the first off, the experience was great. No, I didn't get to go. What is going on with you right
I'm
now, Adam? What
so
is going?
sorry. I'm so
You look
sorry.
wow.
Apparently, me doing things triggers that. Sorry. Continue. This is
For
so
our
bad.
podcast listeners, I'm so sorry, but Adam has some filters going on.
I've
But he was really excited when I
discovered
said I didn't get to
Instagram
compete at
Live.
nationals because of COVID. He heard I didn't get to compete and my season was over, and he was like, "You know what? Fireworks! No, that's awesome." No, yeah, but I was scheduled to go there into what was maybe the biggest competition of the year. I think it was, and it was a year that we were pretty good. We thought we had a really good shot at a podium placement, and we thought we could do, you know what, the impossible and take a caption away from LaSalle, because LaSalle didn't compete up to that point, I don't believe, because of COVID. But we saw videos and they were fantastic. I really do wish we got to do that lineup. It was kind of funny because our school kind of held out while all the other schools were dropping during COVID. And so we're like, oh my gosh, they dropped. We're like, we're the favorites to win now. This is crazy. We're like, oh yeah, we're gonna win. And we're like, no, we ain't going. We're not going. And that was 2 or 3 weeks out before we were gonna perform. So missed out on a really big competition I would have loved to gone to. Never got to perform on the Grand Ole Opry stage, but it's all good. I'm glad everybody's safe and
But he
healthy
has
now.
a story. That's what matters.
Oh, and yeah, we thought we had it too. We're like, choreo, that's a win.
Yeah, so the lineup that year, in the
He had it ready to go. He had it ready to go.
of course I did. And I knew you were scheduled to go in 2020. So the women's division that year, Manchester, Olentangy, Los Alamitos, and North Central. So only a 4 choir women's division. But on the mixed side, I mean, just as good of a lineup as ever. Olentangy, Jackson Academy, Manchester, Jackson Prep. So you had both the Jacksons going. Mount Zion, Homewood, Los Alamitos, Findlay, Cedar Rapids, Washington, North Central, Cedar Rapids, Kennedy, and Decatur. Rest in peace to the Decatur
Oof.
Show Choir Complex. Uh, would have been very tough to take a caption off of Los Alamitos, but who knows? We've got 2 minutes left in this show. So with that, we've got the West Virginia State Show Choir Festival
Oh,
in the large mixed division, Hurricane, Winfield, Polka, Robert C. Baird, Huntington, and then in the festival mixed division, Capital, Jefferson, Grafton, and Doddridge County. Folks, have any of you guys heard of any of these programs besides Hurricane? And if so, what's the read?
yeah, I've heard about all these programs actually in some way or form or another. Give me Hurricane with the win because we got to move kind of fast because they're coming off a great win. I think they have a few wins to the names now. Shout out to their women's group as well, Heat Wave, for getting second overall. Never easy to do, no matter the competition. Uh, but I think the wild card here will be Winfield. They dominate their division every year. I know they probably got a third place finish in there this year, so they aren't like completely dominant. But I think they're the wild card here, so I'm going to put them in the second spot because why not? I'm going to go Robert C in the 3, and then I have Polka uh, rounding it out for the for the 4. I'm going to have Huntington at the last spot. Adam, do you have any read on this region?
So I won't give a standard prediction, but I'll give Hurricane both wins with the win with both captions. Winfield, I saw both their groups earlier this season. Very theatrical, very themed, very fun. I'm gonna make the prediction they come in second, and I believe we'll have both Hurricane and Winfield's treble groups in finals. And that will be my prediction for that competition.
No finals here, unfortunately.
Oh,
So another one of those state festivals strikes again.
well,
I think the WVMEA controversy is a little less in the public eye than the ISMA one, but it's definitely still
Oh,
there.
it's there. I remember it from last year. It's there.
Oh yeah, you've got a story. Of course you do. So
It's
Ethan,
there.
when were you scheduled to compete at West Virginia States?
West Virginia States. I don't. I mean, no, I'm kidding. No, yeah,
Yeah.
never went to West Virginia State.
Our last comp of the week is the Powhatan Diamond Classic. In the large mixed division here, we've got Cosby, who we talked about earlier this show, Musselman, Clover Hill, Martinsburg, and Atlee. And then in middle mixed, we've got a monster division. We've got Godwin, Ravenswood, Scranton, Herbert Hoover, Midlothian, Thomasdale, and Poquoson. And then in small mixed, Goochland, Kecoughtan, Amherst County, Hanover, and Martinsburg South. Um, we talked about Cosby. They're definitely on a roll right now. I want to point out that Clover Hill also has multiple competition wins this year. I do not believe there are finals here either. The schedule goes until about 8 p.m. in prelims, so unless you're the Coral Classic, you're not doing finals after that.
Yep.
So any predictions in the large mixed or middle mixed or even small mixed?
I want to try middle mix, but I just don't want to do anyone dirty because I know they're all great, and that's a bloodbath right there. But just looking at the top, I think I'm gonna give it to Scranton. Um, I I like Herbert Hoover a lot as well, and Midlothian, but I don't want to really put them in spots. But if I had to do a large mix, Cosby, they're too hot right now. Got to put them in the one. I'm gonna have Clover Hill at the two. I know Martinsburg was really good a few years ago. I remember that they went on a really big run of GCs, and I know this year they're solid as well. But I don't know if this is a surprise or not, but I'm gonna have Musselman in the three, and I'm gonna have Martinsburg in the four, and then I'm gonna have Atlee to round it out for the large mix.
All right,
I've actually
Adam.
seen Musselman. I've seen Musselman perform.
Oh, we knew it was coming.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
yeah.
Adam, what do you?
I think Cosby holds on to their streak. I think it would be chaos. It would be cats living with dogs. It would be no, I'm kidding. Clover Hill is a fantastic group. I just don't want to see the Cosby kids lose their long and arduous win streak here. And I also, despite it not being the popular prediction, I'm gonna actually back you up here. I want to see a Scranton. I want to see a big Scranton win before the end of the season, in hopes that we have a little bit more Key State show choir.
All right. Wow. I have many nicknames for states that I pull out of my pocket on a regular basis, but the Keystone State is not one of them. So I'll just roll through predictions real quick here. I'll take Cosby at the 1 in large mix, Clover Hill at the 2, Martinsburg 3, Musselman 4, Atlee 5. In middle mixed, Scranton 1, Herbert Hoover 2. I'll take Thomasdale 3, Midlow 4, Ravenswood 5, Millsy Godwin 6, and Poquoson 7. And then in small mixed, Hanover 1, Martinsburg South Middle School 2, Amherst County 3, Kecoughtan 4, and Goochland 5. And we've got another 16 choirs lined up on Friday because Virginia always does a women's division on Friday. So we've got another 16 girls groups there. We don't have the time to cover them. But if you've stuck around from the beginning until the end, I hope you've learned a lot about Ethan's show choir career and perhaps some other stuff about what's happening right now as well. We've got plenty of content, as always, on homerumshowchoir.com. This week. We will be back next week to talk about a nationals recap, a recap about West Virginia states, and see if they have any interesting placements there, Powhatan, and then whatever else comes up as well. So, Ethan or Adam, do you guys have any final thoughts?
Yes, I have one last thing. This is kind of breaking news because we haven't announced it anywhere else except for right here. We're bringing Show Choir Madness back. As you know, it's March. The real NCAA brackets just dropped. So I know some of you might be all filling that out, but we're going to have our Show Choir Madness where we have our 68 choirs battle it out. voting style on a forum to see who's our, I guess, grand champion or slash national champion. This started during 2020 when the pandemic hit, and it got so much engagement and people loved it. So we're gonna do it. This is what, year 4 of it? Yeah, year 4 of
I
it.
think you're
So
5, right?
oh yeah, it is year 5. Yeah. So it'll be year five of it. So yeah, and maybe on next show we'll discuss it. Maybe we have a little segment about it where we break down the bracket a little bit. I don't know. It's just an idea I throw out there. But yeah, so when that drops, the bracket will drop here in a week or so. So keep your eye out for that. And voting will begin that week as well for our first 4.
All right. Fantastic. Well, with that being said, we're at just about 60 minutes. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. As always, this show is available on Spotify and YouTube later tonight. So if you're competing, good luck. And if you're watching, there go more fireworks. And with that being said, I am William for Ethan and Adam. Have a great evening and a great week, everybody.